my daughter turned the page and she said, "I just want you to know." And she said, "I feel safe here at River Valley." And that's such a simple thing that we take for granted, but she feels safe not only physically, as in, Maslow's shelter. She felt safe to fail. She felt safe to try. She felt safe to be herself.
River Valley School in Calgary teaches kids from the age of 3 to grade 6 with a whole child approach rooted in curiosity and creativity. Jennifer Forbes is a Calgary mom of 2 girls with 2 very different sets of learning needs. One gifted and in need of extra challenge, the other faced with extra challenges and in need of more support. As Jennifer tells me, when she found a school that could meet so many of her family's needs at once, she was blown away. Now that her eldest has just graduated, she says the feeling she's left with is one of gratitude for a school that gave her kids the feeling of safety and security they needed to grow and thrive. Tell me about your girls.
They're great. I've got my 9-year-old is just about to graduate grade 4, and my 12-year-old just graduated yesterday in our new COVID reality drive-through graduation at our school. And they're very curious. They're very kind. They're also very different. And I think that's important to acknowledge in this interview. I've got, I think that's very often the case in families. I have very opposite learning styles in my children. My eldest actually has a very mild learning disability, and then my youngest is actually in both math and language arts enrichment. So very diverse learning styles that we have had to address in our family.
Tell me more about this, Jennifer. Tell me more about your daughters
Sure.
as students and what addressing their different needs means.
Yeah, well, as a parent, that's always a challenge. We have to face many sort of unexpected experiences. And so when our eldest was very young, I sort of noticed that she wasn't, I didn't have a lot of frame of reference because she was my oldest, but I sort of thought, reading isn't coming that easy to her. Spelling at that age wouldn't have been an issue. But as time progressed, we noticed that perhaps there was an issue. We didn't really know for sure. And when the children are so young, there's not much investigative things that you do. You just sort of let them be, and things kind of get better or work out or change over time. So some neighbors had recommended River Valley School, and they have, so after 2 years of preschool, they actually had a junior kindergarten program that was full day. And both my husband and I work, so it kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone. What an amazing opportunity to have daycare and a full day of education combined into that. So we stumbled into River Valley that way, and then never left. Now with my second born.
Sorry, Jennifer, before going in there, just so I'm clear, this was your first moment of getting to know River Valley School. And it wasn't on purpose. It was, you weren't looking for
It was friends.
anything.
Sort of through the community. There's quite a few families in our community that do send their kids to River Valley. For whatever reason. And this family that we were close with, they had children that were older, and they said, you've got to go tour the school. And at the time, we had a real wonderful head of school. We have a new wonderful head of school, just phenomenal. But, we met with her, and she took us on a tour of the school, and we just felt the warmth and the kindness. Private school can offer many things to many people. Some people are looking for a rigorous academic experience. Some people are looking for smaller class sizes, and some people are looking for a warm, caring environment. And it sort of ticked all 3 boxes for us.
But so I'm clear, Jennifer. It sounds like you weren't necessarily looking for anything. You're starting to notice something with your eldest daughter, and your neighbor said,
"Yeah,
hey."
Well, and just, when someone gives you such a rave review of a school, it piques your curiosity. And, in my mindset, we were going to send our daughters to this school in our neighborhood, the catchment school in the public system, which, both my husband and I were public school educated people. And we felt that, it serves an amazing function and had no issues to think otherwise. Just with the competitive edge of River Valley at the time was the full day academic experience. And we were even worried at that age, is she gonna fall asleep halfway through the day? She still naps. And they assured us, I thought, well, I'll just send her a half day and pick her up, just being a little bit mollycoddling. And it was not even a week before she was managing full days, enjoying herself, playing with her friends. It was, I think only a class of perhaps 12 or 13. And it was wonderful. So the rest is history, so to speak.
Tell me about your youngest daughter and who she is as a student and what River Valley does for her needs.
Sure. So Julia, my youngest, is in grade 4, and she's a very spirited, very dynamic child. Kind of opposite to my eldest in some respects, in that very, very strong language arts skills, very strong math skills, and sort of needed extra stimulation and challenges. And the enrichment program at River Valley has provided that. So she is pulled out of the classroom a few times a week and given, extra challenges within those 2 disciplines, and coaxed along in a different way, which is great. I should also mention that my eldest daughter at River Valley has a very unique program, the only one in Alberta, called Aerosmith. Very prominent in Vancouver, actually. It's a neuroplasticity development program. And so we put our eldest daughter in that for part-time for 2 years. And that was an incredible experience as well. So within the school, she would go to a different room and perform exercises. And we noticed a huge difference in her language arts skills, and also time management and discipline. So it's been a very, very positive outcome for that as well.
So it sounds like River Valley had a lot of special offerings that served you along the way.
Yeah.
In the early days, it was this combining childcare and full day education. Now you've got specialized enrichment programs, Aerosmith's neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what's going on from a curriculum and education point of view that allows all this special offerings.
It's really special. It's, I call it a bit of a unicorn school. So it, as I said, it meets children where they're at. So the curriculum wise, it's very strong in math and language arts, but it also has a lot of specialists, more than any other school I've ever heard of. We have an amazing art program. We've got drama. We have a music program, outdoor education, which is tied into the physical education program. Lots of extra, we have student government, so kids actually run for government and initiate change within the school. We have, I'm sure I'm missing some, we have just this year our head of school, Carolyn Breland, announced a mental health initiative. So we're really focusing on not just the mental health of the children, but the staff and families as well. So we've had guest speakers. And if, I don't think Carolyn knew it at the time, but with what 2020 has thrown us, I think she was on point, and it served us really well. Just last week, the graduating grade 6 class had a breakout session on Zoom with a psychologist talking about the transition from grade 6 to 7 and how they were ready and how to tap into their skills to have a successful transition. And I was really impressed with that, because that is a tough time. And with COVID, it's probably a lot tougher. But yeah, that's been awesome.
That is an interesting point. We're talking in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. Schools are about to wind up for the summer holiday after months of online learning. There's been a big story of adaptation that's taken place. And
absolutely.
I'm curious, as someone who's, as a parent with your family, you've grown up with River Valley School, kids going there from a very young age of 3 or 4, now leaving grade 6. Tell me about how your relationship with River Valley has evolved, or how you've seen River Valley itself evolve over that time.
Yeah. It's gone through a lot of change. We had leadership change last year with a new head of school. So that's always a moment of trepidation, where will we see the same excellence in leadership from one transition to the next? And we thankfully have. Coronavirus threw a curveball, I think, at the entire education system across the world. But, within a week of schools closing, River Valley launched a really simple to use online learning system. My kids have been occupied for, I think the goal was 5.5 hours a day of instruction. I would say we're close to that. Some days were easier than others. Some days were a bit longer, some days were shorter. But as I said, my husband and I both work, so that really allowed us to continue our work at home. And I still feel that they really got the whole curriculum. So I really do appreciate it. And I think we were ready as a school, but that's been a huge change. One of the things about River Valley is we really try and advertise and live and exemplify a very hands-on caring environment where in the younger grades, we hug our children, we comfort them when they're upset. And with online learning, that's not possible. I mean, I guess I could give you a virtual hug, but you and I are meeting on a computer screen right now, and the dynamic of education has changed so much throughout this. But that's been probably the hardest change, is not having that sort of emotional support in person.
I'm curious about the culture and values of the school, and I particularly want to know how the recent crazy months that we've all experienced, how that's brought out something for you about what the school is, what it stands for, and its culture and values there.
I think oddly for me, this sort of COVID time, I'll say, has brought out for me some of the things I took for granted in our culture. So I think I took for granted that kindness and giving and respect existed everywhere. And what I've seen, with the mental health initiative as well, I think it was top of mind with the administration, and they really pivoted to even make that more inclusive. So, how are you feeling? How are you doing? I had teachers reaching out on phone asking, how's your family coping? We had some webinars online about, how do we manage the stress as homeschoolers? Because I now have a massive amount of respect, not that I didn't before, but it's increased for education and our educators everywhere. It's not an easy job. And I think it's even harder for parents, because I think sometimes, with children, conflict can arise with those you trust and love the most. And we've had some tough moments in this household, I'm not going to lie. And I just feel like there was a lot of support mechanisms that came out that I think I took for granted, that the culture of giving and kindness and, there's a huge emphasis on who are we in the bigger part of this world. So not just, here's your education, memorize your times tables, but like, what's it like for children all over the world to learn, and how are we going to interact with the world as it changes so rapidly? Because, if we don't teach our children resilience in moments like this, we're not going to have successful outcomes.
River Valley, they talk about a whole child approach. What you're saying about teaching resilience and the things that come with that have become so important recently in light of the pandemic. Can you tell me more about what a whole child approach looks like as someone who's seen it play out through all these years?
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of some of the things we've touched on. But a whole child approach to me, in my experience, has been just looking at each of my children as individual situations and learners, and then finding out what works for them. I can draw on the example of my oldest. Somehow was introduced and fell in love with a Korean math, a math strategy called Chisenbop. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's essentially using your hands as an abacus to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And for her, she loved it. It was comfortable. And so I reached out to her teacher in that particular year and subsequent years and have said, she really likes this. Are you familiar with it? And every single time, the teacher would either say, yeah, I've heard of it, it's really awesome. Or no, I haven't, but I'm going to go online right now and learn about it. And that's great. And that works for her. Let's keep going with it. And let me educate myself to help her excel at this, because it doesn't really matter as we get older that she's using that strategy. It's working for her, and go with it. So sort of like there's many ways to get to the same, there's many ways to get to the same location in the brain and in life. And, and then with my youngest, they are pushing her ahead with the enrichment and allowing her to develop at a different pace and think in a different way. She learns completely differently, but they're still getting excellence in education both ways. So I feel comfortable with that.
Jennifer, we were talking earlier about how it was kind of a coincidence and almost unintentional that led your family to River Valley. Tell me about the moment when you realized that you were hooked in a bigger way.
Yeah, it was, well, junior kindergarten was an amazing experience for my eldest. Really lovely, actually a lovely group of kids who, many of which graduated together yesterday. So that was a bit bittersweet. But, I think I would say kindergarten, I think 2 great years. So junior kindergarten and kindergarten were such excellent years. And, some people might approach a full day program at that age as, oh, great, like it's a full day program that's not available in the public system. I'm going to use it for that. And then I'm going to dive back into public and it's a full day once they get to grade 1. And so there is that sort of moment where you're like, this is an outlay of money, and if we commit to grade 1, I think we're pretty much committing to grade 6 financially. And then I've got, I had a baby at the time when she was in JK. And so for us, I think what happened was we just realized that this is really special. And we might get it somewhere else, but I don't think we are, because, I saw the gains and the leaps and the bounds and the things that the staff and students were putting into her. And at that time, and I knew that both my children would go for, JK or tots to 6. So we're kind of addicted and hooked, so to speak.
I'm wondering if there was a specific anecdote or a specific comment or something that you witnessed a change take place in one of your daughters, perhaps, in their first months there.
My eldest, I would say, is a very shy child, and those grades almost painfully shy. So when I actually have a really emotional story, and they do personal development binders every year. So they talk about, we go in and it's sort of a student-led conference. So they're telling us what they're learning and we're just listening. As parents, we're listening and they're really presenting to us. And at the last page, a few years back, my daughter turned the page and she said, I just want you to know. And she said, I feel safe here at River Valley. And that's such a simple thing that we take for granted, but she feels safe not only physically, as in, Maslow's shelter. She felt safe to fail. She felt safe to try. She felt safe to be herself. And I think that's, I'm emotional now about it, but it was a very emotional thing for me to see that, because she was so shy and she's not like my younger child is very gregarious, outgoing. But she's still waters run deep in that girl. And I was really touched by that. And I think my younger daughter would say the same. They feel safe. And that's not just shelter. That's safe to learn, safe to fail, safe to try, and, safe to make mistakes. And that's what we need to be even as adults. We need to try and, be vulnerable to the experience. And that's worth every penny to me right there. So, and I just, sometimes I wonder, I workshop, like, what would it be like if we didn't send her to River Valley? And I don't think she'd be the same person. And I think that says a lot. Both of them. Yeah.
We're talking about, the whole child approach. We're talking about resilience. And I'm wondering, from your perspective as a parent and your experiences with at this school, how does feeling safe fit into the whole child approach, both, the education side, but also as a parent who's invested in the whole child?
Yeah, I think that's everything. I mean, I think when we feel in life that we're in a safe place, we are able to take risks, we're able to explore, we're able to be curious, we're able to ask questions, and I think we're able to learn and develop, not just academically as just total beings. And I think that's the essence of River Valley, is that my children have felt safe to say what they feel. They're safe to explore and ask questions. They feel safe to say, I don't get that. Can you please repeat it? And I think we take that for granted because, sometimes in a fast-paced life and world, and I mean, we've slowed down a bit in COVID, but this world is so fast. I think it's really important to feel safe in your environment, to grow. So it's been great. I can't say enough about it.
When you're talking to other parents about River Valley,
Yeah.
I'm wondering what's the most common question you get and the least common, maybe a question you've only gotten once that surprised you.
That's a really topical question because I live in a cul-de-sac, and during COVID, we put a fire pit out on someone's front yard, and as parents, we sit 6 feet apart in front of the fire every night the weather is nice, and that's come up a lot because just so happens that the other parents in my cul-de-sac are in the public system, and we're the only family in this cul-de-sac in private. And, we had our reasons, and we've touched on that in this interview, but, some of the common questions are like, how much are your children getting online? Because we're only getting this, or we received X. And I've always been very proud to say that I feel like the kids throughout this and throughout their entire time at River Valley are getting what they need, and their teachers, I can always say, genuinely care about them and always have time for them. So I feel like I've always been able to answer in a really positive light, and I'm really proud of that. And then I guess the question I get the least is like questions. I'm always surprised people don't ask about how much private school costs. And then I also am surprised that a lot of people don't understand the funding structure of private school. So a lot of people think we pay a fee, and that we don't deserve funding from the government. I guess this is getting a bit political, but I have learned that, when we pay our fee, we're essentially just topping up a supplement to match, to buy. I almost think of it as you're buying down certain things. So the government will only pay, I think in Alberta, it's approximately 70%, don't quote me on that, but 30% of my tax dollars for education still go back into the public system that I don't utilize. And sometimes I get some very pointed questions at sort of the elitism of private school. And I think we all need to, just like in COVID, we all need to exercise compassion and kindness surrounding that, because I have my reasons that I sent my children. And, one of them was, my daughter had a mild learning disability, and then my other daughter needed something else. And I think we all need to exercise a little bit of kindness surrounding that, because for us, it's a no-brainer and it works great for our family. But I think public school works great too for certain families. So I think we can all coexist and live in harmony in the system. So the one question I'm always surprised though is people never ask, how much do you pay for that? Never get it. That's there's an assumption. Yeah, there's just an assumption. You pay X, and I don't, like it's very interesting. Yeah.
Jennifer, I'm really glad you touched on that. It's a really important thing, and it's kind of at the heart of the matter for a lot of families. This is not just about the smallest class size or the best teacher, but this is the whole family's is part of this decision. It's the family's finances, the children's future. You yourself, coming from public education, you might have a few of your own internal biases and assumptions, just like you've encountered some in the outside world. Tell me about this public-private thing, this pay or not pay thing. Tell me about your relationship with those ideas, those biases, how they've evolved through your time at River Valley.
I think I went into the private education system and didn't understand any of it. It took another parent, a very wonderful woman at school. I think she sort of took it on as an education piece, and she educated me and said, this is what it is. And I think if, my understanding, which is limited, but my understanding is if, it's a vital part of our education community, it is a financial decision. It's a big financial decision for our family. It's not something we take lightly, but it's where we're deciding to put those dollars, and maybe at the sacrifice of something else. But to us, I call it the return on investment has been so high that it's a worthy and it's a decision and commitment that we're happy to make. But if we took away these private schools and charter schools and, you know, specialized schools, there's so many categories. I think what we'd find is a completely burdened public school system that perhaps, I mean, maybe it would evolve to accommodate all these subspecialties and subsets of kids that might need this or that or the other. But at the end of the day, what River Valley provided to has provided, I'm speaking in the past tense already from yesterday with my grade 6 graduating, and what we'll continue to provide is a really important part of our life. So I think it's important that we have options in education. I think their options are great. And it's working out for us. And I think I feel better that I know 30% of my tax dollars still go to public. And I'm happy for that. I think that's great. And that may be where we end up one day. I have no, I don't know what the future holds, but for now and today and for River Valley, it's a commitment we're willing to make.
You know, last year you were saying River Valley got a new head of school. And
yeah.
let's make believe for a minute and pretend that head of school was you. And so I want to know a strength of River Valley's that you would double down on and a weakness that you would work on.
So a strength that I would double down on for River Valley, you know, I think the one thing that has really set River Valley apart is that kindness piece. You know, I'm not sure at the next school teachers will actually hug her. They may very well. I can't speak to that experience yet, but I think Alicia will miss that close contact and the feeling that, you know, I know her teachers care about her deeply and want the best for her success-wise. But there's a warmth on top of that. So there's a real kindness to the teachers. And I mean, I think an elementary school would provide that inherently more than a junior high school, but I would double down on that because it's that safe piece I talked about before. Like when my one daughter and both daughters have communicated it, that they feel safe, I think there's that willingness to learn. A funny one would be, something that like a weakness with River Valley. It's a really odd one, but I would say, you know, I gotta think of that. You have to give me a minute. I want to say the parking lot because it's sometimes a bit chaotic. The school wasn't designed to be a school, so I don't know. It's a unique thing. It was the old German Canadian club. I'm gonna say that the parking, I think, drives us all a bit crazy, but in a way it brings us together in the chaotic nature of it. I don't know if that's a really worthy criticism because there's nothing that can be done about it. I don't know. I don't really have a lot of negative to say about it, but I think I would say the parking lot.
When you're in the parking lot and presumably hanging out with other River Valley parents, what kind of things do you talk about?
You know, that's actually, I guess that could also be construed as touching on the negative. The parking lot, there's not a lot of hanging out. It's a car based pickup system. Some people do walk in. I use the time in the parking lot. If I'm parked and not moving, I can catch up on phone calls and return phone calls. You know, I actually ended up putting my kids on the bus to go home last year because it was just so much easier. But yeah, that's one negative is maybe the school does a lot of parent-led activities to try and get parents into the school because we don't interact in the parking lot as much as, let's say, another school that had a great parking lot where you could park and walk in. We line up in the parking lot in our cars.
Well, tell me about the relationship you have with other parents at the school, you know, in particular or as a community in general.
I would have to say I'm a pretty involved parent. So I just finished some time on the board. I did 2 years on the board of directors. And then a very dear friend of mine, we did gala this year. So we just through that process spent a lot of time with other parents. So I would say they're a really great bunch. We like to have fun. you know, we have lots of events throughout the year where you get together, and there's some fundraising components to it, but yeah, I've had a chance to interact in some of I'm very sad to say goodbye to some of the parents if they're moving on in different directions, but I'd like to think we'll all stay close. You know, if we have younger children together at the school, we'll see each other. And then that's one of the benefits of social media. You stay in touch with all the parents and kids vis-a-vis social media. So, yeah.
Through your time chatting with these parents, getting to know more parents in the community, is there a typical River Valley parent?
No, it's an incredibly diverse group, actually. I wouldn't say there is any particular, I think that's true of all schools. I think it's a very diverse group. Lots of people
what about in terms of what drew you each to the school? Is there a common thread in terms of priorities and appeal?
You know, that's unique. I think it's so diverse. I mean, I think like the reasons I chose to send my kids to the school are probably very different from others. I think there's a genuine, like all parents, a concern for their education and wanting the best for your child. But I think, you know, finding that right platform is probably what drove them there. I think, you know, once you tour the school, I think that's a really important piece. I think you have to get in and see classrooms in action. I guess tough today, but seeing things in action and learning about the culture of the school, I think that's sort of the big sell. I think once you see it, you're going to love it, and you're going to realize that, you know, they get the academic education, but then they also get the liberal arts, and they get the total being development. And what parent could ever ask for more? I do remember at one of the first assemblies of our year, our head of school, Carolyn, said, you know, there's one thing that all parents, you know, what question would you want answered for your child at the end of their educational journey? So look at the end, you would want them to be happy. And I think that's, you know, something that we sometimes lose sight of, but, you know, we want our children to be happy. We want them to feel safe and be happy. And that's why we chose it.
Jennifer, I'm curious if we had another thought experiment and sent you back in time to talk to your past self as you were just accidentally getting to know River Valley. You know, now you have quite a intimate understanding of the place, but back then you were. Yeah. If you could counsel your past self on things to look out for and things to be interested in, and assets and value proposition of River Valley, and go, oh, check out this, check out that, what would be the tour you gave yourself back in the day?
Sure, I would. Yeah, that's a really great question, because a lot of people do ask me. I get a lot of questions about River Valley. People are curious, and I would say, you know, look out for not just the academic. Look out for how great the art program is, and how great the drama teacher is, and what that actually translates into. And there's a French program. My kids have been taking French since 3 and 4, and just, you know, that's a great skill. That's something that's an unexpected and unintended benefit. You know, they can read music. They can, and you know, and then self-advocacy, you know, they work on, my kids can speak up for themselves when they're uncomfortable or not, you know, liking something or not liking something. And, you know, it's not just about reading and writing and memorizing your times tables. There's so much more to a modern education that parents should be looking for. And it's that sort of emotional quotient. Like, how are you? How are you doing? How are you feeling about education? Because, you know, my personal attitude, as long as my children love school, they'll stay in school and they'll explore and keep going. And, you know, I just want them, as Carolyn Breland said, I want them to be happy.
I want to know what's on your radar that I haven't asked about, but perhaps I ought to.
You know, I think I'm very curious about September, like every other parent. I'm curious to see what this new landscape will look like. I want to know, I think every parent wants to know, what will our education system look like? How will our children be? And I also sit around and I think a lot about, what will the impact of this time be down the road? So what will our children take from this experience, you know, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? And how will this shape them as people? So, I read somewhere that, we have to worry about the future because all of these kids are going to, have been homeschooled by their parents, which is a very scary thing. But I feel very confident that, these kids have had great guidance. I think there will be resiliency that comes out of this. I think this will prepare them for reality because they live in a world where it's so fast paced and they're on the go. This has been a moment to slow down and focus on other things. But I really look forward to September. I'm really hoping the kids are back in school and that, I don't think any of us are in control of that outcome, but I guess we're in control in so much as we have to be careful with ourselves. But I really hope that, especially for my daughter transitioning to grade 7, I worry that's hard. I worry for the kids going into first year university, what we experienced in our university days that they're potentially going to miss out on. So I worry about that, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Any final words of wisdom for a hypothetical parent looking for the right school for them in Calgary?
I would say do your research, and it sounds kind of corny to say, but go with your gut. Go where you feel comfortable, because where you feel comfortable, I truly feel your children will as well. And ask questions about your child. Highlight the unique traits of your child, and see how the school responds to that. I think you'll get a really good sense of what works for your family if you do the tour, albeit virtually potentially now, but do the tour and ask the questions and meet with people, and trust your gut at the end of the day.